Hey, loves. I hope you're well. I have a big dog on my lap. He's so stinking cute. And he's so big. He thinks he's a lap dog. So I can't move around much. But, I really believe in synchronicity. And some very interesting things have happened lately. I talk about my brother often because it was so impactful, and I was very close to him. We were the only two family members that lived near each other down the Jersey Shore, and he was my baby Sarah's godfather, and we'd gotten really close. He was much older than me by 10 years, so as younger, me as a younger sister, like, he didn't want anything to do with me. I was just in the way, and I was a brat. So it was really a gift that we had that time together, and no accident. It's amazing. All my siblings that have passed away, I was able to, and my nieces, have really wild and impactful experiences and time with them right before their passing. That's a gift. To me, that's a gift. And emotionally, I'm like, my psychological first aid, I can handle stuff like that. Not everybody can, but I kind of love that stuff. So I think people who are dying tend to feel very comfortable around me, and I am not uncomfortable with that process. So my brother, I've told this story before. It's like a really beautiful story. So I grew up super Catholic. Like, when I say super Catholic, super fucking Catholic. My mother worked for priests. She traveled to Medjugorje twice, where the Blessed Mother was appearing to the children on the mountain in Yugoslavia, which is now, like, all of that is dismantled. We had priests over all the time, like, all the time. Game night every Friday night. That was like pizza night. My Uncle Nick owned a pizzeria, so we'd get pizza. Yeah, it was holy water font outside the front door, like, super Catholic. And my mother held prayer group in the house. Fun. And I actually didn't mind Catholic school. I didn't mind that at all. So all of this is relevant to the story because there was a lot of addiction in my house, in my family bloodline, and my brother had his own battles. And I don't really remember how it happened, and this is right before he passed away. So my belief is God was definitely preparing him to transition. He had a very good friend that was born again Christian. To the dismay of my mother, he became a born again. And it was wild and beautiful and a privilege to walk alongside him and watch this transition. So my brother, who very much lived life for himself, and we could, if I'm being honest, was selfish, but when you aren't married and you don't have children, you could live a selfish life, and I don't judge that because that's your path. That's your purpose. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. So he started volunteering in a soup kitchen. I saw a change in his depression. He was working out more consistently. He found purpose. He's the one that introduced me to the book, A Purpose-Driven Life. And he softened. And he felt more peaceful and at ease. And so one of my favorite pictures of him is after he was baptized. He's with his fellowship. And he's one of the only people kneeling. He was very short. My brother was like 5'9", but his personality was so damn big. And everyone's standing behind him, and he has his arm up and his fist up, and he just looked so happy. You could see that community, that connection, that sense of belonging. And we know with addiction, that connection is protection. And so although so many family members were giving him crap, I was like, he found God. Who cares how it happened or, what type of Christianity? He is walking in faith. He has an active relationship with Jesus. And man, when he died, although I was like, really? What the hell? I was like, yeah, you know what? God knows what he's doing. And that wasn't an accident. And he was prepared for his transition. And that brings me so much peace and comfort. You have no idea. And the reason why I wanted to share this is because on my brother's 4-year anniversary, so he fell off the mountain hiking at Acadia National Park. He was between Sandy Pebble Beach and whatchamacallit, the very popular mountain that you hike to look at the clouds. I was there. Why can't I? Thunder something? I don't know. Something like that. So on his 4-year anniversary, all the emergency service personnel, so all the first responders that were part of search and rescue, they contacted my family and said whenever we wanted to go there, they would meet with us. And I am that person. This is how my brain works. It took me 4 years. I really needed closure. This was something that, as emotionally strong as I am, I'm also human, and it really rocked my world. I'd also lost my mom 15 months later. So, and my nieces, I'd lost back to back, and that was only a few years, but, maybe 3 years before my brother passed away. So it was a lot. And I call the Rangers and they're like, how could we forget your brother? It would be an absolute pleasure to meet you. And I kid you not, I am not lying. I'm pretty intuitive, and that intuition is feeling, like a feeling inside me. Now, I show up to this mountain. I have no idea where I'm going. I have an idea of where I'm supposed to meet the ranger, and cell service is crap. So I have no service. My brother was the alien of the family. Everybody was like a Yankees fan and a New York Giants fan. And my brother decides that he is a diehard Minnesota Vikings fan, like from the time he was a kid. So that was his jam. And I kid you not, I pull into the parking lot and a van is backing in facing me, like right in front of me. And it's a Minnesota Vikings license plate. And I'm like, I don't really think that's an accident. I don't believe in coincidences. That's my brother. I'm early because I'm anxious. And I don't like being late anyway. And I want to get there, and I want to explore a little bit on my own. So I start walking, and as I'm moving in this specific direction, I'm starting to feel super nauseous, really sick, anxious. I have a fear of heights, and that fear is kicking in as if I'm standing on like a high ledge looking down, but that's not happening. Like, I'm totally safe. I'm not even on a like full-blown trail. So I'm like, I have to be in the area, and I'm looking at the map, and I know that I'm in between the two places of where he died. And the girl who was with him had said it wasn't like a full-blown trail. There's like those social paths. And I get to this little opening, and I'm like, this is it. So I walk down, and I'm like, holy hell, this is, to me, terrifying. He lost his footing. He didn't have fear. His amygdala was wired very specifically. He wasn't taking precautions like a person with a healthy amount of fear would. And he lost his footing, and he fell. It was probably like 60 feet. They said he tried to hold on, and there was no vegetation, there. It's Maine. And the beach down below was all rocky. So there was a lot of trauma to the head, his whole body, but to the head, because it was very rocky down below. He had no head protection on. Why would he? He just was going for a leisure hike in his mind. So I'm like, this is it. This is definitively the spot. I'm with a friend. My friend's like, you don't know that. We have no idea where we are. You have to wait till we meet the ranger. So I get off the trail. I go back to the parking lot. the ranger's waiting for me. Sure enough, I'm like, I'm going to show you where this happened. He's like, okay. And he's like, how did you know that? I was like, I felt it. Like in every cell of my body, I felt this. So my friend walks away. He's like, I'm going to give you privacy. And the ranger and I sat together and he was like, what do you want to know? And my mind is wild. And I function like Morbid is one of my favorite podcasts. You know, half my astrological chart is Scorpio. So we love the dark, mundane. We have an interesting sense of humor. So I wanted to know everything because I needed to know that this otherwise healthy, vibrant adventurer, explorer who lived his life to the very fullest would never have been able to survive this, which I pretty much knew from where I was standing and what I was seeing, but I asked every detail. And I will say that this is where I learned that search and rescue are absolute heroes and rock stars. The fact that they treated him as if he was their son, their brother, their best friend, their nephew, they did everything to save him. It was an extremely technical and difficult rescue because of the beach that he landed on. So they had the helicopters, they rappelled themselves down the mountain, which, dear God, I was, again, terrified being up there. He was not the first person to die at this spot on the mountain either. And they called in the Coast Guard, and that was actually how they decided to rescue him. Now that I know so much about search and rescue and the processes, I understand the strategy and the protocol and the mapping out of things. And although the rescue took 2 hours, they were working very, very, very quickly. So they had to float a full body splint a mile out. The beach, the water, like the first part of the water is so rocky, they could not get the boat to shore. So that was a big holdup. So they had to float the body splint to his body on the beach, get him in and float him back. And then he died in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. So that was his 4-year anniversary that I went. He died October 2nd. Oh my gosh, Maine. I love Maine. Maine is beautiful. It's one of my favorite states. I would love to go back and celebrate his life and not be so steeped in all of that grief and heartache and heartbreak. I would love to get back to Acadia National Park because it was a very melancholic trip and I didn't get to enjoy it. And so I'm elated that my oldest daughter is deciding to go there for his 20th anniversary. And my daughter is a pretty staunch atheist, and I never have forced my kids to believe in anything because of my upbringing. So much was shoved down my throat. And despite what other people believe, I very much believe that you can be spiritual and religious. I mean, the Holy Spirit is embedded in the Bible. You know, they're not mutually exclusive, in my opinion. And so I grew up pretty spiritual and religious. Not religious like my mother, but religious by default. And then I was a language arts major, so I studied the Bible figuratively in college to the dismay of my mother. And I didn't like that. And so I really raised my kids to be curious and ask questions and have their own thoughts and ideas about things. And I never wanted to force them into specific ideology or thought forms. And I would love her to believe in something greater than herself, which I think she now does. But we had this very interesting conversation about Jesus the other day. And I will admit, this is a little bit of parental manipulation. And I am a big fan of what I deem healthy manipulation. We even talk about this in the therapy field. Is I'm kind of using my brother because she misses him so much. And she was so young when he died, but she does have some memories of him. And it really did impact my kids. Out of any of the deaths, my brother and mother definitely impacted my girls the most. Probably because they were the closest to them. And they were very, very young when my nieces passed away. babies, really. But I'm kind of springboarding my brother's conversion. Now, I don't necessarily need my kids to identify with a specific form of Christianity. I don't. But what I would love is for her specifically, because of her challenges, to believe in something in terms of the discipline and the morality and the foundation. Because although my kids were raised with some of that, after the divorce, life got very challenging and difficult. And I honestly needed to get food on the table, and I needed to pay bills, and I was now the provider, and I was the dad and the mom. So there was a lot happening there, and some things got lost in translation, and that breaks my heart. And I've actively had this conversation with my kids, which I think is very vital for single parents to own and name where they've gone wrong, things that they wish they could have done differently. I was the best mother that I absolutely could be, but if I could turn back time, there are things that I would have done differently. But anyway, you could actually look my brother up. He was all over the news. Of course he was. Like, front page of the papers. And there's a book that somebody wrote about deaths at Acadia. And I believe he's in chapter 3, and there is a little blurb about him. They definitely used him as an example of what not to do, because he was kind of fooling around up there. I believe since his death, if I remember what I saw, there is now signage. But yeah, again, I can laugh and smile about it now because a lot of the work has been done. And knowing my brother, he was just up there celebrating the beauty of the mountain, happy as a lark, like what could go wrong? And rocks are unstable. He was up really high and he just got too close to the ledge. And at least he died doing something that he loved and was passionate about, and something that brought him joy. But the fact that he was prepared and had an active relationship with Jesus and took himself out of self, right? And in yoga, that's seva, service. And he took himself out of self and he became so much more community oriented, brings my heart and mind so much peace. You have no idea. And so if you are not a believer, I'm not here to convince you of anything, but I have many other stories in this genre. This just happens to be very close to home because it was my own brother. Anyway, I just wanted to share that. I love you to pieces. Have the best day possible. Oh, and here's a little doggy laugh for you. He perked up a little bit. He's a cutie, little stinker.